made with spoken. Out of Luck, A Tale of Happenstance, by E.G. Bateman. Digital narration performed by multiple digital voices. Out of Luck, by E.G. Bateman. Chapter 1. Happenstance, Maine. Sharp stones and twigs bit into April's bare feet as she raced in the darkness toward the fairy ring. She crashed through the forest, which wasn't normal for a nymph, but her magic had vanished in the attack. The creature had made her powerless with a single touch. April hadn't wasted a moment, even to see who or what her attacker was. She scrambled to her feet and ran. Her ankles scraped the edge of a rock. The impact brought her down. Her knees and palms stung as they ground into dried pine needles on the forest floor. Pain and the metallic taste of blood told her she'd bitten her tongue. She lurched back to her feet, spat out blue, bloodied saliva, and continued on with her yoga pants snagging on branches, clawing at her skinny frame in the wind. In her disoriented panic, she had no idea where she was. But when the old woodman's shack was lit up ahead of her by a streak of lightning, the vision burned into her eyes and allowed her to correct her course. The ion smell of the oncoming storm brought flashes of memory from her childhood in Fae. She wished she'd never left. It had seemed such an adventure to live here, teaching art and yoga to the humans in this quaint world. She pushed the thoughts away as the wind whipped her long, dark hair across her eyes and into her mouth. She pulled the hair into a knot at the back of her neck, careful not to touch the wound on her head she'd received while being slapped to the ground minutes before. April ran on feeling the chilly specks of the storm's first raindrops on her bare arms and headed deeper into the trees toward the ring where she would reconnect with her magic and cross over to Fae. She cursed the fact it was the night before the solstice. In mere hours, the woods would be filled with other Fae who would have been able to protect her. On an exhausted breath, she leaped over the circle of mushrooms and crocuses into the grassy clearing and drew upon the magic. She was seconds from being able to open the portal when a presence joined her in the ring. The energy she drew on was different. Sour. April turned to face her attacker. Chapter 2. Ravi.
Rose, it's Ravi. We found April. She's dead.
The deputy sheriff gripped his cell phone and waited for a response while the secretary stifled a sob. He sensed the sheriff's sadness as the older man crouched a few feet away beside the body, writing in his notebook. When Rose silenced herself with a gulp, the deputy continued.
We're in the woods, at the fairy ring.
The sheriff lifted a hand to draw Ravi's attention.
We need Paul out here, and ask her to call the doc. We'll bring April in.
Ravi nodded and repeated Harry's instructions. He disconnected and slipped the cell phone back into his pocket, then turned back to the sheriff.
Isn't the dead thing still up for debate? I'm sure I can sense something.
So can I, but we've both checked for a pulse.
Harry looked at blue blood staining his fingers where he'd felt her carotid.
We might be sensing her spirit. Maybe it's trapped somehow. In all these years, this is the first Fae death I've ever seen.
The weary sheriff got to his feet and shook his head at the young fairy's still body.
I'm getting too old for this.
Ravi raised an eyebrow.
Too old to be a sheriff or too old to be a mage?
Being a mage and bonded through magic with my oldest friend is something I'll never get tired of.
Harry patted his deputy's shoulder.
It's the job. These bones complain all the time now.
Harry rolled his shoulders, emphasizing his point. Ravi nodded.
You and me both, old pal.
Harry led the way back through the woods to the road. As they neared the road, Ravi sensed they were no longer alone. He remained hidden in the cover of the densely wooded forest as Harry stepped out toward the state trooper's cruiser that had pulled up behind his own parked vehicle. Harry and the trooper nodded a silent greeting as Harry closed the distance. Two pairs of mirrored sunglasses reflected each other for several silent moments in the bright morning light. The trooper slid the shades down his nose, glancing at the blue stains on Harry's hand.
Problem?
Harry looked down.
My pen broke. I don't have a spare.
The trooper reached into his shirt pocket and held out a pen.
Here, no charge. I meant, why are you out here? Is there a problem?
Harry took the pen with a nod. They were now far enough away that Ravi had to mutter a spell to hear the conversation. Harry explained.
Kids, been throwing dirt at the sign again.
They both turned to regard the mud-spattered sign. It read, Happenstance, the town that never was. Below the text, an arrow pointed to nothing, with the words, You are here. The sign was a joke. Happenstance didn't exist. It was a paper town, drawn onto maps in the old days to catch mapmakers who copied the work of other cartographers. Except, it wasn't. Most regular people would miss the turnoff. If they saw it, they wouldn't feel inclined to turn into it. And at no point would it even occur to a regular to ask why a non-existent town would need a sheriff. Ravi sensed Harry gather his magic. The sheriff touched the trooper's arm, drawing the man's gaze.
You should move along now. Forget you saw me.
The trooper's eyes glazed over. He gunned the engine immediately and headed back up onto the highway. Harry took out a handkerchief and wiped the blue blood from his hand. He removed his hat and raked back gray, thinning hair. He was tired. Ravi could feel it through their connection. They had been partners for over 30 years, since Harry, a couple of years ahead of him at the academy, had taken Ravi under his wing when he joined the Alliance, the organization that policed the supernatural world on Earth. Ravi gathered his energy and vanished, appearing beside Harry.
Everything okay?
Harry frowned.
You know you shouldn't teleport out in the open like that. What if he was glancing into his rear view?
Ravi smirked.
Keep up, Daddy-o. We call it darting these days.
I know what you kids call it. Is teleport too long a word for you?
Ravi snorted. He was 58, just 2 years younger than Harry.
As to the trooper, I could appear sagging bare-ass naked in his kitchen handing him his morning coffee, and he still wouldn't see me.
A human-animal presence touched his mind.
I can sense Paul coming through on foot. He's in wolf form.
Harry nodded and led the way back into the forest as Ravi muttered his spell for detecting nearby enemies. They returned to the body of the young Fey woman who had been giving classes in art and yoga in the town for the last year. She was still in the workout clothes she was seen wearing the previous day. She lay on her side, but her pose was odd. Her body stiff, as though she'd frozen in a defensive pose with one arm up. Harry checked his watch.
The Fae are going to come through at any minute for the summer solstice celebrations. They'll be led by Fae Lord Aladon, and the first thing he's going to see is his daughter dead in front of the portal. We need to move her.
Deputy Paul appeared on the other side of the clearing. Still in wolf form, he panted.
He must have run hell for leather to get here so fast.
Ravi waited as the wolf sniffed first at April, then his nose went into the air. He growled, bared his teeth, and bolted into the woods. Harry stepped over to the girl.
See if he needs backup. I'll take her into town and come right back.
Ravi waited a few moments. Harry was getting old. Hell, so was he. But he knew better than to offer help to the proud old sheriff. Instead, he darted to the wolf's side and found him with hackles raised. Chapter 3. Ravi. Ravi stepped back so as not to interfere with Paul's tracking senses. The wolf turned in circles. Something was near, but Paul seemed not to know what it was. A moment later, a chill ran through the mage, through his bond with Harry. Something was wrong. He gasped. Paul turned to face him and dipped his head to the side. The universal canine code for, huh?
Harry.
Ravi said by way of explanation, then darted immediately back to the fairy ring. Harry was on his knees with his arms stretched out, the hands curled around as though carrying something. But there was no sign of April.
What happened? Did you take her back?
But Harry hadn't darted. He'd have felt it. When Harry didn't respond, Ravi put a hand on his shoulder and the sheriff keeled over, as stiff as a board. The mage held a hand over his partner. Their unbroken link indicated that Harry was alive, but his body was frozen solid, with no outward sign of life.
"What is this?"
Came an angry, arrogant voice close behind him. Damn if those Fey folk weren't quiet. Ravi rolled his eyes before turning around.
My Lord Aladon, bright be the solstice.
"Never mind that. What is happening here?"
The silver-haired fairy was flanked by two of his shining guard, and others were waiting to cross from Fey through the wavering portal behind Aladon.
I don't know, my lord. We've had a couple of attacks, but we haven't found the assailant.
The haughty Fey lord gazed around.
"Where is my daughter?"
I'm sorry, my lord. April was the first victim. We found her here, but I just returned to find her missing and Harry here.
Aladon seemed more angry than concerned.
"My daughter was attacked, and you've lost her? Is she dead or alive?"
Ravi tried to explain.
Well, we thought at first that, but now I'm not.
Aladon interrupted.
This town had two jobs: to protect the portal's existence from the humans, and to protect my daughter. The fact that both she and this human have been attacked, and this,
He indicated Harry's frozen form,
left at my feet, tells me that you have failed in both.
Ravi bit back a retort. He was furious at the Fey Lord's insult of his injured friend. Aladon continued.
You have until the sun reaches its highest point. If my daughter is not returned to me unharmed, the town will not be receiving the year's blessings of good luck.
Aladon turned back to the portal, but spun again.
I give you a sample of the town's blessings if you fail me.
He reached over Harry's stiff, prone form to pluck a white dandelion which had turned to seed from the ground. He straightened and blew gently on it. Seeds flew from it, not a few, but thousands, into the air toward the town. He dropped the stalk and stepped back through the portal, which rippled and faded. The woods were silent, no sign of Paul. But Ravi couldn't wait. He wasn't prepared to leave Harry in this vulnerable condition. He put a hand on his shoulder and teleported back to the sheriff's office. After rolling the frozen man back into the squatting position he'd found him in, he took a few steps, then turned to ensure Harry wasn't going to roll over again. He left the room. Rose sat at her desk with red eyes and a tissue scrunched up in her hand. As Ravi approached, she sobbed.
She was so young and beautiful. My yoga group are in tatters.
Did you call the doc? We need her here. Harry's not feeling well. Actually, call Marie too. Tell her to put her coven on standby. Don't go into Harry's office before they arrive.
He was about to dart when he turned back to her.
Please don't tell anyone else April's dead. I'm not sure what's going on yet.
The woman blinked in confusion.
But you said...
I know what I said. The situation may be more fluid than we thought. Have you heard from Paul?
Not since he left to go meet you both.
Okay. One last thing. If anything unusual happens today, let me know.
The woman blinked.
Are you kidding? It's the solstice.
Then anything unusual for the solstice, let me know.
With that, he darted back out to where he'd last seen Paul. There was no sign of him, man or wolf. Ravi muttered a spell which caused Paul's wolf prints to glow in the ground. Ravi followed the trail to the edge of a track which led to the old Pinter place. The grand old house had been a boarding house for a while and was last a dance school, which hadn't lasted long. As he walked, he puzzled over the missing girl. Why would the attacker come back and take her body? Or did she just get up and walk away? Surely Harry would have stopped her. Hall's trail stopped around 1/4 of a mile from the house when Ravi stumbled across something he'd never seen out there before. A statue of a wolf. At first glance, it might have been Paul, petrified like Harry and April, but as he neared, it was an actual statue. He walked around to face it. Every intricate detail of Paul's wolf face was there in stone. There was no life in it at all. He darted back to the sheriff's office. The doctor was waiting for him with her lips pulled into a grim line.
There's nothing I can do for Harry. Marie is in with him. She should be able to discern if this was witchcraft. She's waiting for her coven to arrive. What the hell happened?
Ravi gulped.
Jeanette, we've got a Gorgon.
The doc shook her head, and her glasses, which had been perched in her red hair, dropped onto her nose.
I appreciate the similarity, but he's still alive.
Not Harry. Paul. I just found him in the woods. He's solid stone.
Ravi went on to describe how they had found April frozen in the same way Harry had been. Then he shared Aladon's ominous threat.
That's rich. I'm amazed that arrogant jerk even remembered his daughter was here. What is she? Offspring number 60? I doubt he's ever spoken to her. That girl has received more love and attention in this town than she's ever had in Faye.
Jeanette didn't often share what she learned as an empath, but she was upset about the situation. Ravi sighed.
So, here's the problem. We need to find April or her body. But if there is a Gorgon in the woods, that's the last place we should be sending people.
Where did it come from? Gorgons don't just pop up from thin air.
Marie stepped out of Harry's office, her black pantsuit flecked with whatever herbs she had been burning. In answer, Ravi spread his arms and shrugged.
Any luck with Harry?
The witch shook her head.
I've called the gang in, but this is beyond me. Did I hear you say Aladon just went straight back through the portal?
At Ravi's nod, she sneered.
If there's something this town could do with right now, it's the good luck he could have brought. I can't be the only one who thinks that's odd. Why didn't he send his squadron of shining assholes out to find her?
Ravi pulled out his cell phone.
I don't know. I have to call Alliance HQ.
You're kidding. We're going to have the whole town swimming with supernatural feds. I'm not sure which is worse, them or the Gorgon.
Marie grimaced, seeming to remember that Harry and Ravi were both Alliance.
Present company accepted.
Ravi patted her arm as he dialed up the Alliance control room. He stepped into his office to speak. A bored male voice came over the line.
Control room.
Hi, this is Mage Ravi Sharma of Happenstance, Maine. We've got a Gorgon.
The operator paused.
A what?
Ravi repeated.
A Gorgon.
A turns people to stone Gorgon?
Is there another kind?
Wow, can you hold?
The mage sat at his desk, thinking about Paul. The poor kid had only been living in Happenstance for a few months. He picked up a pencil to make some notes, but the tip broke. He put it aside, took out another pencil, and again the tip broke. He grabbed a pen and clicked the end in and out until someone spoke to him.
Mage Ravi?
Ravi sat up.
Yes, speaking.
Sorry for the delay. This is Diana from the executive office.
Okay.
His heart hammered in his chest. After everything that had happened today, it seemed that talking to someone from the top floor was the thing to send his blood pressure through the roof.
As you can imagine, we're seriously understaffed today, but we may have just the thing for you. We're trying to locate a colleague who has the perfect weapon. Sit tight, and don't look directly at the Gorgon.
She disconnected. Ravi stared at his cell phone.
No shit.
He stepped out to the main office.
Damn it.
Rose sat at her desk, sucking on a finger.
I stapled my own damn finger.
Chapter 4. Natalia. Natalia Roberts disconnected the call and smiled as a plan formed in her mind. She was glad she'd bothered to answer it. In the Atlanta summer heat, it had been an effort to drag her 8.5-month pregnant belly out of the chair to reach her colleague's desk.
Who was that?
Jack, her Alliance unit leader, stuck his head out of his office.
Just someone after Olivia asking to borrow one of her toys. I said I'd pass the message on.
Natalia kept her explanation as innocent-sounding as possible.
We don't refer to our weapons as toys. I've asked you not to do that. It's unprofessional.
Sorry, boss.
When you speak to Olivia, tell her she's got a pile of reports to complete that's higher than my head.
He disappeared back into the office.
Will do.
The pregnant mage called after him. She rolled her eyes. Olivia was out on job after job while she'd been benched. It was so unfair. She was pregnant, not incapable. She checked the map to see Olivia's location. Great, she's nearby in Augusta. She quick-dialed her colleague. The line connected, but before Olivia spoke, a cacophony of smashing glass made Natalia wince. Finally, Olivia spoke.
Hey, Nat, have you popped?
Not yet. I'm still the size of a house. Diana from HQ called. Someone needs to borrow a weapon.
I'm in the middle of something right now. Can I call you back?
An explosion sounded in the background. Natalia held on to her belly and darted.
Hi.
Natalia appeared standing next to Olivia, who was sitting on the floor behind a bar, with the cell still at her ear. Olivia reached up, grabbed Natalia's arm, and pulled the pregnant woman down, just as half a dozen poisonous spines flew over her head and smashed a row of bottles behind the bar. Olivia frowned.
Son of a bitch. I had my eye on that tequila bottle.
Wow, it smells like last year's Christmas party in here.
Natalia popped her head up for a split second.
Ooh, a manticore. Do you have some of its own poison to bring it down?
Apparently not enough.
Olivia sent a ball of energy over the bar that splintered an upturned table the manticore was using as a shield. The barman was lying with his eyes wide, curled into the fetal position a few feet from Natalia. She grabbed a bottle of vodka from the floor and rolled it over to him.
Go ahead, knock yourself out. Literally, if you can manage it.
She turned back to Olivia.
Diana wants to borrow your demon sword.
And there wasn't a non-heavily pregnant mage available to come and get it?
Olivia winced as the glass above them splintered again in another barrage of manticore spines.
Well,
Natalia shrugged. Olivia chuckled.
You must be bored.
Oh God, I'm so bored these days. They won't let me do anything.
They've got a point. If I give it to you, will you get the hell out of here?
Natalia grinned.
Sure.
Olivia put out her hand, and the ancient-looking weapon appeared. She passed it to Natalia.
You're not getting involved in anything, are you?
No, I'm just passing it on.
Natalia pointed in the direction of the creature.
Why is the manticore so pissed? I didn't have enough venom. Apparently, they get pissy when you only half drug them.
Natalia took the sword and dropped it into a purse which shouldn't have been big enough to carry such an item. She picked up a spine. The floor was littered with them. She waved a hand in the air and all the spines jumped up.
Off you go. Back home.
They flew back in the direction they'd come from. She peeked up to see the manticore with its human face, a picture of shock, and its body looking more like a porcupine than a lion. Olivia stood up next to her.
Huh, I never thought of that. He's been sending all that ammo over for hours.
She grabbed an unbroken bottle of bourbon, took the top off, and drank, watching the creature as it crashed into tables and chairs. Natalia sighed. She hadn't had a drink in months. Olivia grinned, but kept her eyes on the failing beast.
Yeah, you can't have the nice alcohol.
Natalia gave her a withering look.
Oh, I nearly forgot. Jack says you've got to come in and finish your reports. I'll tell him you're finished here so you can make a start.
Olivia sighed.
Oh, shoot.
Moments later, Natalia appeared, grinning, back in her office, where her husband and fellow mage Dean was waiting with an angry face.
Where have you been? I sensed you getting overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed with emotion. I just popped out to see Olivia. She's planning a baby shower.
Dean arched an eyebrow and clearly didn't believe her.
You know darting could bring the baby on.
Oh no, I hadn't even considered it.
Natalia fixed him with a deadpan stare.
And that's just an old wives' tale. If it worked, I'd be zipping all over the country like a pinball.
Dean put his arms around his wife.
There's just a couple of weeks to go.
Natalia finished the sentence.
Until I lose all my freedom for the next few years.
He kissed her temple.
You'll be back at work as soon as you're fit, if that's what you want. Whether you go back to work or stay at home for a while will be up to you. But for now, we can't take any chances, especially not at your...
He stopped speaking.
If you're about to say, at my age, I'll turn you into a radish.
Sorry.
Dean grimaced. Natalia's voice wobbled.
I just wanted one last little adventure. Can't we just go out to drop something off for Olivia?
Dean's jaw dropped.
It's the solstice. The Pixies have decided to have some kind of faction war. It's crazy out there.
But Happenstance is the luckiest place on Earth at the solstice. What's the harm?
Happenstance? In Maine?
A flash of interest touched Dean's eyes, until he narrowed his eyes at his wife's belly. She was losing him.
Straight there and back, I promise. And we must be the only mages we know who haven't visited Happenstance.
Dean relented.
Fine. There and back.
Natalia nearly punched the air.
We're just looking for a local mage called Ravi. We'll drop off the thing and come straight back.
Dean narrowed his eyes.
What is the thing?
Natalia grabbed his arm and darted across the country to Maine. They arrived on Main Street, Happenstance, right in the middle of the street. A car horn blasted and they moved quickly to the sidewalk, which is where they should have safely arrived in the first place.
How the hell did that happen?
Dean put an arm around his wife. Natalia shrugged. The town of supernaturals was as pretty as she had heard. The building beside them had an old Coca-Cola sign painted onto the side. Mom and pop stores seemed to rule the shopping options lining the high street. There wasn't a chain store sign in sight. She almost squealed when she saw the bar was called the Lucky Saloon. Natalia smiled with delight at the magical and supernatural auras around everyone on the street. It took her a few moments to realize the people weren't smiling. Some were even scowling. She thought, if I lived here, I'd be smiling day and night. Dean addressed a tall witch in a black pantsuit who was hurrying along the sidewalk with a basket full of herbs and jars.
Excuse me, we're looking for the sheriff's office.
It's right up here, just past the bakery. I'm heading there myself.
She marched off and they hurried along behind her. As they approached the police station, the door to the bakery flew open and a man ran out with a tray of pastries, black and on fire. He dropped them on the ground and stamped on them. Natalia entered the station and Dean followed, muttering,
I thought this was the luckiest place on Earth.
Not today, it isn't.
The desk clerk said by way of greeting. She poured gin into her teacup. Natalia smiled.
Hi, we've come from Alliance.
The woman gazed at Natalia's pregnant belly, then dragged her eyes to her face.
You'll be here to see Ravi. Where are the rest of you?
It's just us.
Natalia was surprised by the woman. She was the only non-supernatural person she'd seen in the town so far.
2? They only sent 2?
The woman poured more gin.
Well, 2.5.
Natalia put a hand on her belly. A small, middle-aged man in uniform with the deputy's badge stepped out into the hallway.
It's okay, Rose. I'll take it from here.
He turned to them.
It's a miracle you're here. I haven't been able to contact HQ since I put the original request in.
He bustled them into an office. Natalia blinked in shock at 7 people, frozen in various positions. Ravi held out a hand.
Have you got it?
She took out Olivia's sword and passed it to the other mage. In her peripheral vision, Dean stared hard at the sword. Agitation rippled through their bond. Her husband cleared his throat and asked,
What exactly are you dealing with here? They didn't tell you? It's a Gorgon, or at the very least, some kind of Gorgon light. No, they seem to have left out a few important details.
Dean was now staring hard at Natalia. Ravi hefted the sword.
Are you sure this will kill it?
Natalia turned pointedly away from Dean toward the deputy.
It's called Harpy. It's the sword Perseus used to kill Medusa.
Perfect.
Ravi dragged a thumb across the blade, then nodded. Dean frowned.
Don't you have a posse or something? Where's the sheriff? That's the sheriff.
Ravi pointed at a uniformed man, frozen into a squatting position. Natalia asked,
What exactly is a Gorgon light?
I only know of one person turned to stone. Everyone else is petrified like this. Maybe they'll turn to stone slowly, or perhaps the Gorgon isn't very strong. Honestly, I don't know. Our best hope is that killing it will release everyone in this condition.
Dean took Natalia's hand.
Well, good luck. It looks to me like you need a lot more people. I'll message HQ when we get back.
Natalia frowned.
Surely we can...
Dean wouldn't listen.
You shouldn't be anywhere near this in your condition.
Natalia blushed. It had been foolish to come, but being dismissed in front of others shamed her further. She put a hand on Dean's arm and... nothing.
I can't dart.
Ravi didn't look surprised.
We've been able to dart within the town, but can't get beyond the town limits. Communications have been down for the last half hour, too. The Gorgon's not our only problem. The first victim was a young nymph, April. The Fey Lord who usually leads the fairies here during the solstice to endow us with good luck has bestowed upon us a taster of what we can expect if April isn't returned unharmed. He's coming back in a couple of hours to deliver the full unlucky payload. We're on our own. I'm going out to round up some help.
I'll come with you.
Dean held out a hand and a back scrubber appeared. He blinked. Ravi gave him a lopsided grin.
That keeps happening to me, too.
Dean tried again, and a crossbow pistol appeared in his hand. He blew out air in relief. Natalia started walking toward the door. Dean caught a hold of her.
Where are you going?
We're rounding up help.
Sorry, honey, you're the only other mage in town. You need to be here to protect those frozen people who can't protect themselves.
Natalia knew what this was, but she couldn't blame her husband for wanting to protect their child. She grabbed his face and kissed him.
Take care.
Ravi and Dean left. Chapter 5. Natalia. The witch who had entered the building with them introduced herself as Marie. She circled the room, burning white sage and placing crystals here and there. Natalia was tempted to suggest there wasn't enough white sage on the planet for this. She noted the distress on the woman's face.
Is there anything I can do to help?
The witch's expression went through a gamut of emotions. Finally, her shoulders slumped.
I don't think there's anything I can do to help.
Regardless, she continued to chant softly. Natalia left the room and bumped into a man walking backward, carrying another victim.
I don't think there's any space left in there.
He gazed around.
Then where? We've got 2 more on the way.
Natalia turned to Rose to ask, but the woman appeared ready to pass out in a drunken haze. The mage stepped over and put a hand on her head, muttering a few words. The woman, suddenly sober, blinked up at her.
Why the hell did you do that? Now I have to start all over again.
She looked at Natalia's belly.
You look fit to burst.
Natalia ignored her.
They're bringing in more people. Where can we put them?
Rose sighed. She pointed the man toward another office.
In there.
The front door flew open, and a woman wearing a white coat marched in, straight up to Rose.
My office is full of peepsicles. When is the cavalry getting here?
Natalia put her hand in the small of her aching back and puffed out air.
That would be me.
The doctor's eyes went wide. She opened her mouth to speak when the door opened again. 2 young people edged in sideways with their faces smushed together.
Oh, for the love of God, this is the 3rd pair. Rose, can you send out an all-points bulletin that no one with retainers is allowed to kiss today? Call the judge. Make it a law or something.
Can I help?
Natalia's fingers twitched with the need to be doing something. The doctor put up a hand.
Don't use magic, it's likely to backfire. I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way.
She pulled a pair of pliers from her pocket. The young girl's eyes bulged as she approached.
Calm down, Jenny. This isn't my first rodeo.
Come on, let's leave Jeanette to it. I'll make you a nice cup of tea.
Rose led the way to a little kitchen. Natalia stood in the doorway as Rose made the tea.
Are you feeling okay after I used magic on you? I didn't think.
Everything seems to be in order. I think we dodged a bullet. It's my own fault for getting into that mess.
Rose turned to face her, waving a teaspoon as she spoke.
It just felt like getting pie-eyed was the right thing to do, you know?
A shot of lightning flew out of the spoon and blew a cupboard off the wall. Natalia leaped back as 3 gin bottles hit the countertop and smashed. The woman squealed.
Here, take your tea. I'm going back to get drunk again, if there's any left.
Rose passed the cup to her and walked out of the kitchen. Natalia blew on the hot tea and made to follow. A moment later, after a light, tinkling crack, the cup broke off, leaving the handle between her fingers, and the rest of it shattered at her feet, splashing tea up her bare legs. She raced after the other woman.
I'm sure I read somewhere that gin is okay in the 3rd trimester.
Rose already had the bottle in her hand. She pointed at Natalia's drenched legs.
If you want to clean that up, the bathroom is down the hall, 3rd door on the left.
Natalia walked to the door and grabbed the handle, which came off in her hand.
Oh, come on.
She took a seat next to Rose.
I think you're going to have to fight me for that gin pretty soon.
Rose grinned.
Bring it on, sister.
Marie joined them. The witch dropped into a chair.
There's so much going on, but I've never felt so useless.
Jeanette returned and pocketed the pliers.
Tell me about it.
The door rattled and drew their attention. Natalia got to her feet, hoping it might be Dean. A woman was pulling the door to the sheriff's office. She pulled and pulled and pulled. The sign clearly said, "Push." Natalia waddled over and tried to pull the door open for her, but the woman was wrenching so hard she fell back into the street. Her large purse flew open and dumped the contents on the ground. Natalia ran out to help. She picked up the woman's purse and tried to hand it to her, but a gust of wind blew the contents down the street, and the woman went running after them. Natalia was in no condition to run after the woman, so she brought the purse inside and returned to her seat with the other women.
The lady lost her purse.
Marie took the purse and studied the tag.
That's a nice purse. It's a good size.
She turned it around in her hands like she was considering buying it. She looked inside and took out the only thing that hadn't fallen out. A white feather wrapped in silver wire and twine.
Oh, look. This is a fairy charm. You'd think it might have given her some protection.
Rose stood bolt upright, gazing at the door.
Good heavens! We thought you were dead.
No one had entered. Marie dropped the designer purse back into Natalia's lap and grabbed the gin bottle from the desk.
You've had enough of that.
Rose continued with her one-sided conversation.
But you're standing right in front of me.
She paused.
For goodness sake, Marie, you can see Deputy Paul, can't you?
The witch and the doctor shared a look. Marie turned to Rose and said softly,
"There's nobody there."
She smiled sweetly at the administrator, then slapped her across the face.
Better?
Rose cupped her cheek.
Why did you do that?
You were seeing things. I fixed you.
Rose pointed to the other side of the desk.
He's still there.
I've been planning to talk to you about your drinking, dear. I think now's as good.
Be quiet, he's speaking. April. But how could she?
She paused again, then turned quickly to her friends.
The Gorgon must have done something to April. She's the one who's been freezing people. Paul saw her in the woods, but the Gorgon killed him before he could report back.
She turned to Natalia.
He says Ravi and your husband went out alone to find the Gorgon, but April found Ravi. He's petrified like Harry, and your husband's out there alone.
A chill passed through her bond with Dean. She stood and gripped the purse as a pain spasmed through her belly.
I've got to go.
Natalia appeared in the woods facing Dean, who was frozen, his eyes wide. Between them stood a short, waif-like girl with long, dark hair, and mercifully, her back was to Natalia. As the girl turned, Natalia grabbed the purse by the handles and flipped it over, dropping the feather talisman on the ground. She rammed the bag over the nymph's head, drew back her arm, and punched the purse-covered face so hard the nymph flew back through the air and landed on the ground. She didn't move. Natalia picked up the talisman, then stepped over to her husband and stroked his face. She bent to pick Harpy from the ground at his feet. When she straightened, water trickled down her legs.
Oh, goddess, not now!
Chapter 6. Natalia. The pregnant mage dropped to her knees. She needed to get out of the woods. A twig cracked behind her, and she spun around. It would be impossible to undo a lifetime of training and not look in the direction of the threat. It was just a rabbit bounding through the undergrowth, but she wondered what it might be running from. The mage grabbed her frozen husband's leg and tried to dart back to the station. For the second time that day, nothing happened.
I'm not trying to leave town. Why isn't it working?
She tried again. Nothing. Once more on her feet, she cradled her belly as she ran to the large house. It appeared abandoned, but if she could find a room with just one way in, it would be defensible. She shouldered the iron gate, which squealed in protest, then hung on to it for a few seconds as a contraction hit and almost brought her to her knees again.
This is pathetic. I am an alliance mage. I will not be bested by my own child.
She prodded her belly.
You behave.
Natalia staggered through the overgrown garden. Stopping again to catch her breath, she leaned against a low statue and dropped her head. Just a few more steps. She staggered back. The statue was staring in terror up at her. No one would have a macabre statue in their garden, of a man on his knees in tattered clothes cradling a bottle. Her stomach flipped. This hadn't always been a statue. The house was silent. Is the Gorgon inside? It didn't matter. This baby was coming, and finding a safe place to shut herself away was still the best option. 5 steps took her to the open doorway of the building. Natalia pulled at the vines to the side of the entrance, revealing a brass plaque. Happenstance School of Dance. She tightened her grip on Harpy and staggered through the large entrance hall. With its majestic sweeping staircase, it had clearly once been grand, but now most of the doors were missing, and the floor was littered with leaves and dirt. There were still 2 doors that she could see, one toward the back of the hallway on the right, and one close by on the left. The sound of a creaking floorboard off to the right and another contraction made the decision for her. She staggered to the left and through the door. Natalia found herself in what must at one point have been a ballroom, then probably where the ballet lessons had been held. Giant floor-to-ceiling windows covered one long wall. Along the opposite wall was a ballet bar. She imagined that mirrors would have lined that wall, but they were long gone. 2 doorless entrances stood at the other end of the room. This room was far from secure. Another contraction floored her. She found herself on her hands and knees near a pile of blankets and a sleeping bag in the middle of the dirty wooden floor. Natalia's thoughts flickered to the statue of the man outside. This must have been where he was sleeping. Her body was preparing to give birth, and she was not okay with that. The next contraction made her howl out loud. She couldn't stop herself. They were a couple of minutes apart now. Her husband was frozen, and there was probably a Gorgon in the building. Natalia giggled. The hysterical outburst had bubbled up from a place of utter disbelief at her situation. Then the hissing started. The mage froze with fear. Even the baby seemed to still its activity. The hissing sound echoed around her. The Gorgon had entered the room. Natalia tried to get up, but succeeded only in rolling onto her back. She forced herself not to look around by staring at the ceiling, hoping a hiss or creak of a floorboard would give away the creature's location. A sparkle caught her eye. Right above her, high in the ceiling, was a dusty, mirrored disco ball. The shape of the Gorgon reflected in its shiny exterior, snakes slithering atop its head. It was hard to guess, but it seemed around 15 feet away, still near the door. If she could keep her eyes closed until it got close, she might get it with the sword.
Why have I been awoken? Who has sent me to this realm?
Natalia lay there with one hand on the sword and one on her belly.
No idea, but I'd be delighted to help you get to wherever you need to go.
You are of no matter. I hold your future. Look to me, and you shall see it.
Natalia felt a tug of compulsion. She gripped the sword tightly.
I'm good, thanks, but no.
She kept her eyes on the disco ball. From what she knew of compulsion, it would get stronger the closer the Gorgon came. She would have to act now. This was going to have to be one hell of a lucky shot. Lucky! Natalia pulled the fairy talisman from her pocket and tied it to Harpy's hilt. She took one last glance at the mirror's fragmented reflection, then closed her eyes, raised herself onto one elbow, and launched the sword with everything she had. A short scream was cut off, followed by the sound a heavy thud on the floor. Natalia dropped down onto her back and looked for the Gorgon in the disco ball's reflection. The Gorgon lay sprawled on the floor.
Ha! Blame it on the boogie, bitch.
She checked the disco ball again, but the mage couldn't identify the snake-laden head. Footsteps and an angry young woman's voice sounded behind her.
What the hell is going on? And why is a bag stuck on my head?
Natalia sighed with relief.
April, don't take it off. The Gorgon's dead, but I don't know where the head is.
April stumbled over the body, then staggered around and kicked the Gorgon's head. It rolled across the floor and flopped dead snakes against Natalia's arm. Natalia shuddered.
Found it.
She scrunched her eyes closed before reaching out to grab a blanket from the pile, then pulled it over the Gorgon's head. She helped April remove the large purse which had caught in April's hair by the zipper. The mage blushed to see the young nymph had a swollen eye and cheekbone. April blinked at Natalia in shock.
Oh dear, you're in a pickle, aren't you?
A few moments later, Dean and Ravi burst into the room, and Natalia sighed with relief. Ravi bundled the blanketed head into the purse. Dean retrieved Harpy, which had been embedded so deep into the door, he narrowed his eyes at Natalia when it took 3 tries to dislodge it. They had to make several attempts at darting to get near to the town's small medical center. Epilogue. Natalia. Natalia cradled her son and smiled at Dean.
How's it going out there?
Lord Aladon returned. He appeared more shocked than delighted to see his daughter alive and well.
Natalia frowned.
That doesn't surprise me. The Gorgon wasn't the architect of this.
Dean smirked.
Did the two of you have a nice chat before you decapitated her?
You know me. I'll talk to anyone.
Dean laughed.
And I'm happy to report, the Fae folk have been frolicking in the woods and dancing through the town. They're sprinkling good luck on the citizens of Happenstance as we speak.
Dean leaned over and watched the baby sleeping in the bassinet. He put an arm around Natalia.
Do you want to get home?
She kissed him.
Just a bit longer.
A knock on the door brought Harry and Ravi with a giant blue teddy bear. Dean stood.
How are you both?
Harry glanced at Ravi.
Honestly? We've been talking. We think it's time to retire and make way for the young'uns.
Natalia raised an eyebrow.
Are you saying there's a couple of vacancies coming up?
Dean gave his wife double-raised eyebrows. He smiled.
Let's talk.
The door opened again, and in came Rose, Jeanette, and Marie with balloons. Natalia put the baby into the bassinet, and the ladies cooed over him. Rose slid a bottle of gin onto the bedside cabinet. She winked at Natalia.
For when you can.
Natalia grimaced. She was probably responsible for making the woman see dead people.
Are you okay now?
Rose turned away.
All right, I'll tell her.
She turned back to Natalia.
I'm to tell you, your baby is beautiful.
Natalia looked behind Rose. No one was there. She cringed with guilt. The administrator smiled.
Marie says it was a latent ability that would have come out sooner or later anyway.
Once again, the door opened, and April entered. She blew a kiss at the baby, a fairy blessing. Then she stepped over to Natalia.
My father has asked me to thank you for saving my life.
The nymph looked away and blushed as she spoke, which made Natalia suspicious. The nymph took out a bright silver fey dagger. It was beautiful, engraved with strange fey markings and shining with an inner light.
He has asked me to offer this gift to your child.
Everyone present knew enough to say no. There were some fairy gifts that came at too steep a price. Natalia cleared her throat.
Well, please thank your father for the inappropriate, sharp, stabby gift for my less-than-a-day-old son, but we must decline.
The dagger disappeared from April's hands. She frowned in confusion. Then everyone was gazing into the now glowing bassinet at the shining blade resting under the baby's tiny fist.
It seems the child has accepted the gift. How interesting.
Natalia took the blade and disappeared it.
I'll keep it somewhere safe for now.
April looked curiously at the baby, then shrugged.
You also have my thanks. I must return to Faye now. My father has commanded it.
Rose, Jeanette, and Marie chorused.
No!
Marie sagged with disappointment.
Who will run the yoga classes?
The nymph stepped to the open window, produced a dandelion from thin air, and blew on it. The little seeds drifted off into the afternoon sky.
I'm sure the right person will come along.
Everyone said goodbye, and the little family of 3 prepared to leave town. Dean asked,
You really want to live here?
Natalia smiled.
Well, it is the luckiest place on earth.
The end.
The end. We hope you've enjoyed this production of
Out of Luck, A Tale of Happenstance by E.G. Bateman, made with Spoken.